No matter how hard you tried, nothing replaced the hands-on experience.
Yeah. How do you remove the barriers to adoption? How do you remove the barriers to commitment and essentially remove the barriers to customer experience?
My God, I feel like you and I were separated at birth.
I find that people in my life are just incredibly happy for me and supportive of me.
They don't understand the formation or the context. It's not going to happen.
We all get so in our own heads. We don't reach out to understand others. And it's such an unfortunate reality.
Even if you move on, that culture still sits. Hi, I'm Jim Fielding. Welcome to Ask for an Answer. Hi, all you kind and beautiful human beings. Welcome to this episode of Ask for an Answer with Jim Fielding. This is one of our favorite things to do because it's a combo episode, as I call it, because we're talking to somebody we love and somebody we really want to get to know better. But this is also a podcast that celebrates the January 2026 book club selection for the Leading with Pride book club at Alstora.com. The first book of 2026. I told my friend Matt, when I asked him, I said, my God, you'd be perfect for kicking off 2026 with the timing of your book and the title of your book. So I'm going to do the book club stuff first, and then we're going to get into just conversation. So there is Matt's book, Built on Belief. Matt, it came out in September, right?
September, yep.
September 2025. Built on Belief, Why Cultures of Commitment Are the Competitive Advantage. Yes, the competitive advantage. It's absolutely a perfect book for the Leading with Pride book club because first off, it's written by a queer author, which is not the only hurdle to be chosen. But it's all about mission and vision and authenticity and a certain kind of leadership that I'm going to let Matt explain to us. So welcome, Matt. Please introduce yourself, give them a bio, and then we'll get into it.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim. And I am really, really excited that I'm the kickoff book for 2026.
You are. I know. It's amazing.
That's a place of honor. I do not take that lightly. 34 years in some version of a consumer-facing kind of business. So 30 years or so in the actual retail industry. So start off at May Company. Anyone old enough to know like the department store world, right? May Company, Federated, all those giants.
Yeah. When they all had different names.
Yeah, all of them. The regional department store. But anyway, I was a merchant there for 6 years. So I kind of cut my teeth on understanding product and that whole strategy and that journey. And then I moved from there to Gap. So I went from department store and buying to specialty in the field. And I was there for 9 years and kind of rose up through that company through DM, regional manager, zone vice president. And then the last 2 years I was there, I was leading a reinvention of the Gap brand inside the Gap brand because we had lost our minds and we're down 40 comp every single day and whatnot. So it was fun, but also like, you better get this right. And then I left and went to Apple. So that's when they just introduced the iPod for PC customers, which anyone understands what that means. It means their sales went like this to this. And so I was there doing explosive growth and I led the field organization for North America and for Europe. And then I was there for 5 years and then I left and went to Tory Burch where I was the head of direct consumer for global. So that was super fun. So I went from a huge publicly traded company with a $6 billion P&L to a privately held company where my entire P&L was $69 million. But I had a president's role there. And we grew that business from $69 to $800 million in 6 years. And then I left there and went to, did a very short stint in healthcare, which is a whole different conversation. Bergdorf Goodman, for those people who know that, lovely and hallowed institution. And I was there for 2 years as the COO, working with a new president as well. And the idea was, how do you take a culturally driven, just very, very valuable institution, which had gotten stale, and reinvigorate it. And I don't say the word reinvent because reinvent means change. And reinvigorate is like all the best things about it take with you. And then how do you layer on things like technology and all the way that people actually shop nowadays, right? So I did that for a couple of years. And then the pandemic came and I moved to the tech side of the world. Because as you know, Jim, having been in retail like me, we love to talk about investments in technology and we don't really have, it's the champagne taste beer budget conversation, right?
Yes.
And so I figured if that's where the puck is going, let me actually start to learn more about it. So I went to that side of the world and led what they called an industry advisor team across all industries, which is people who came like you and I that owned P&Ls, that ran companies or ran businesses. And we really served kind of a consulting function with executives talking about the case for change and then our internal customers as well. So did that for 3.5 years. And then I decided I really wanted to go out on my own because leadership is such a huge passion of mine.
Huge.
And my own company, which I've called M2 Collaborative, our mantra is unleashing human potential. And so for me, that's always my calling, is how do you help others find their voice, their power, their agency, and their success. And then part of that journey was writing this book because it's like taking essentially everything I just talked about where I've been and distilling it down into my philosophy on how you build brands that last.
Yeah. So, it cracks me up how much we crossed over, because we have the Gap crossover. When you were at Apple Store, we were, of course, studying you because I was doing Disney Store and Steve Jobs was the largest shareholder at Disney and was giving us access to Ron Johnson and all of you guys. It was unbelievable. I give them total credit for the prototype that we did at Disney Store. Like, first off, just giving us the idea to build a prototype, which we could do a whole, like a lab. We actually spent money and built a fully functioning store as a laboratory, which was 1,000% what you guys had done. And I don't think if it was for Apple, we would have ever done that. But so I just want to ask about the book, and then I'm going to get into just general questions because, my God, we have so much in common. Was the book always part of the plan, or was it like, now I should do a book once you started the whole consulting thing? I get asked this a lot myself.
But I was going to say, I'm sure you probably have an answer for that too, and I'd love to hear it. That Steve Jobs, as you were just talking about him, that quote, he said, "You can only connect the dots looking backwards, not looking forwards."
Yes.
So when people look at my resume sometimes, like, "Oh my God, you've had such an incredible career," and they as if somehow I picked all those things strategically. And I'm like, I wish
master plan.
I wish I'd been that smart, right?
I know.
But I kind of have always followed my gut around what feels right to me, and I really felt like I had something to say. And when I say something to offer, I don't mean like versus anybody else, but I've been part of some amazing organizations and at some really critical junctures for them. And one of the things I really learned when I was at Salesforce, and I really was working across over 100 companies, but in the time that I was there, is that there's such a leadership void still. And there's such a it's like we say we value our employees and our internal customers, but most companies just completely like jump over them to get to the quote unquote external customer. And it always made me so confused as to how people don't understand the actual formula. If you want people to give great service or build great companies, you have to invest in the people that do that. And so so it was always something I had in me that I thought about. And then I was like, when I left, I'm like, yes, it's the time now to sit down and actually
get it down.
Do it. What about you?
Yeah, I think it's really similar because I think it's so fascinating because our career path is so similar. And I love what you said, because I said the same thing in my book. Like, if you think I was sitting there 30 years ago with this master plan of where I was going to end up, like you are giving me way too much credit. And, but I think what's interesting is we both came out of department store training, and mine was Dayton Hudson department store, now part of Macy's, right? Yep. Again, the regionals. And I worry about that in a retail industry. One of our mutual friends, Ron Thurston, and I talk a lot about that. And that was such a training in the retail industry. And then you and I both also went to the Gap. And I say to people, first off, that department store training was foundational.
100%.
And then you go to the Gap, and I just tell people, because people were like, you became a president and CEO without an MBA, right? They ask you that. And I said, I did 9 years at the Gap with Mickey Drexler. Like, that is getting an MBA in retail. 100%. Absolutely. Yes. Especially in specialty, like vertical specialty retailing.
Yeah.
And what I love about your career path and what you did with the book is you were always, all of your moves were super logical because you were pushing yourself to learn something new. It's so obvious. And we also share this very common feeling that retail is a blend of human beings and technology,
Yes,
like
art and science.
gut and science, totally.
Yep.
And I just laughed when you were in your intro, thinking about the number of times I was in meetings where we were talking about the IT investment, right? And beyond like the retail POS system, right? Just data, right? Like seamless data where you had 365 view of your customers, and if they were shopping with you online, and if they were shopping with you in store, and all of that stuff. And it was the hardest story to tell your boss or investors or a board of directors because the paybacks weren't immediate.
No.
And, you know, they almost could understand store design. It was weird, or website design. Like they could understand that because it was tangible. But a lot of the technology stuff that you worked on, they couldn't understand. I mean,
no, you know, it's so interesting that you will love this because this is just like an addition to what you're saying. I remember when I was at Gap, we were trying, this is when I came out of the kind of startup that we had been doing, the reinvention of the Gap. And so a lot of what we're trying to do is to change our employees, or especially the manager, from shopkeepers to business owners.
Yes.
It's a very different way of thinking about the world. But in order to do that, you have to change hearts and minds first, right? So it's a journey that people go through. And my boss at the time was like, he's like, well, we just rolled this training out last week. Why aren't they changing? And we're having this conversation. And then we walk into a meeting with the merchants where they're talking about the pipeline of product, which is 9 months at that time. And everyone was fine that it was going to take 9 months to actually get the product that was going to change the trajectory of the business to help it get better. So we walked and I said, you know, that whole conversation we had, we talk about product pipeline. Is like, there's a human pipeline too. Change takes time. And you have to actually invest in the right places to actually move the needle. But to your point, things that feel tangible, or filters and paradigms that have existed in that industry forever, are the things people are comfortable with. And the things you challenge people on. I remember I had this conversation in a different company where I was trying to get budget for a UX person in e-commerce. Well, and they were like, no. And then 5 minutes later, we actually approved some sort of alterations budget for a fashion show. And I just said, how about if we actually just changed our mindset to, we're not a fashion company that actually wants to invest in technology. We're actually a technology company that actually invests in fashion. How would that change what we value, what we invest in? And granted, that's not going to ever happen, but it's trying to change people's orientation about what's important. And to your point, what they're willing to invest in and tolerate, which doesn't give them a quarterly payback, right?
Well, I mean, your story is so important. I hope everybody heard, because you were like, they would accept a 9-month supply chain, like a product supply chain, but they wanted like a 9-day human change. Like
across like 6,000 people.
Exactly. And that is so telling for, I mean, why you wrote the book, why you do the work you do, and all that kind of stuff. Because I do think people have to listen, you and I, we both love retail. We built careers in retail. I love retail. And I'm super proud that I had a retail career. And I'm still in retail, and I'm still consulting, advising, and doing all that kind of stuff. But it's hard. It's a hard industry. And it is changing constantly because the consumer changes constantly. Competition changes constantly, and then technology is changing constantly. And I think your book and a lot of the work you do and the speeches you give and stuff, reminding people of the human element of retail, I think is so important. Because Jim, I love technology. I love technology, but I don't think it can take all human out of it. I think
it should be additive, right? It should be a partner, a tool, a co-pilot, you know, the words people are using now with AI. But what's also interesting is this conversation isn't about retail. It's about any industry where there's human capital, which as far as I can see are most, if not all industries.
100%.
To your point, retail, because it's such a challenging industry, the people that work there for the most part don't make a lot of money unless you're at a certain level or you're on in a different way, whatever. You have to be there because you love it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you aren't loving it, then it's very obvious when you actually engage with someone who's in a retail, either store, online, corporate office, whatever, because they're compliant. Part of one of the terms I use in the book. But that's in every industry. That's in every single industry. And I think that's the part that is, it seems so obvious and it seems so basic, and it is. It's amazing to me the amount of leaders who don't really embrace the messiness of cultivating cultures of commitment and investment, and would rather think of this easier, quote unquote, way to get there, which is never going to happen, right? So that's why people don't ever, a lot of brands don't ever realize their full potential, because they have people that are kind of committed.
Yeah, it's like my mom would say, a little pregnant, right? Like, I mean, they're kind of, I mean, it's so funny because so many of the companies I worked with, and even companies I consult now, they're kind of dipping their toes, to your point. They're not putting their full foot in or even their full leg. I mean, it's a dip. But the mission vision, which, I mean, that is so much of your book, right? Like the culture of commitment is built on the mission vision, the North Star. You talk a lot about the North Star. Why do you think, because I agree with you, I think leaders struggle with that. Like, why do you think, like, especially people that are at high levels, I mean, they've gotten to a high level in these companies, and then they're struggling with what the North Star is, or they're struggling with that mission vision. Why do you think that is? Is it just,
I mean, here's what I'd say.
Speed? I don't know.
I think there's a piece of it, which is that I think you have to me, to be able to get clear on the North Star, you have to do the work to get clear on the North Star. And that means you have to align. Let's just take the executive team. Let's assume there's 15 people on the executive team. You have to get 15 people with very senior experience and very strong opinions, and, as I talk about in the book too, usually siloed incentives. So now what you have is 15 departments, let's just say, that are actually trying to, quote unquote, do the work of the business, but they're all doing their own version of that. So they're vertically integrated, so to speak, versus horizontally integrated. But the work of becoming horizontally integrated doesn't happen by itself. So you have to do the upfront work of investing in clarity, right? And why are we here? Why do we exist? What is our differentiators? You know, what is the challenges that we face, not internally, but externally and whatnot? But and that's work that feels, in a lot of cases, like it takes too much time. It's too much, and it's harder to put on a presentation deck when you're talking about KPIs. And so for me, what I have always done as a leader is to front load my investment and really make sure that I'm setting the conditions for success. Because if we do that work up front and build the culture and build the rules of engagement and the governance and make sure everyone knows their role and what their authority is, as well as their responsibility, and give them a seat at the table to be part of that process, what you find is you move a whole lot faster in the back end and get better results and actually derive better ideas from the people that are part of the process. But for some reason, that's a harder thing for leaders to be able to, I don't want to say stomach, but invest in, because it feels too slow for some people.
And I also think there's a certain amount, I totally agree with you. And I also think there's a certain amount of, which you speak about, like vulnerability and humility that's required by the leaders that are in that process, particularly, you know, on your senior team, those top 2 or 3 leaders, right? So, you know, the president, the CEO, the head of human resources, the CFO, who usually has to pay for everything. Like, there has to be alignment there that this is important. And that we are going to pay for it. And it's going to take us 90 days of upfront work, to your point. But then the next 90 days after that are going to move a lot faster, because we're not going to keep debating the North Star, the mission and vision. And I think that's super smart. And the best experiences I've had at that in my career is where I had a boss or a board or, you know, a series of bosses who gave you the gift of time, to your point. It's even less than the money. Yes, it takes money, but it's really the gift of time. It's really the gift of, this is going to take a series of meetings. I'm going to hire an outside consultant like Matt. I'm going to hire someone to coach us through this because we don't all necessarily have the skill set.
And you know what's interesting? You alluded to this when we were talking about the technology piece earlier. One of the things that I coach a lot of people on, whether it's senior executives, or even my MBA class, we're talking about their personal branding that we're helping them do, is you as the person trying to accomplish something have to learn the language of the person that you're talking to and speak in their language, not expect them to speak in yours. And so while I think that obviously there are challenges with people who maybe don't necessarily, I don't want to say get it, but maybe don't invest in it the same way that you or I would say it was always, the onus was on me to understand what does a CFO care about? What's the language they speak? What are the metrics that are important to them? What's the ROI they need to see? And how do I make sure that I'm giving them what they need so they feel comfortable giving me the space or the resources or the support? And so I think those partnerships are important, but also it's the education and the language translation so that you're meeting them where they are and making their job as easy to say yes as possible.
I think it's such a brilliant example because too often many companies in all industries get that kind of ivory tower echo chamber problem, and they've lost touch with their customer, with the consumer experience, with their service delivery, like whatever it is, like if it's a B2B company, a SaaS company, whatever it is, like spending time with the customer. For us in retail, that meant field, right? And having senior executives of all functions work in the field on the day after Thanksgiving, right? On Black Friday or during the Christmas run. Not necessarily the cash register or anything they're not trained for, but just work in the back room or fill in the floor, or just, to your point, sit on a bench in front and watch the traffic and watch what happens. I had to do this a lot, Matt, when we were really working on omni-channel, right? And why we started to take returns in the store. You remember that, right?
Like, I remember, absolutely.
Yeah, the e-com returns, right? And why that was important. And no matter, like, you know, I had a phone at this point. I was trying to do videos. Like, I was trying to show the people with the checkbooks like what it meant, right? Like the process of accepting a return from our e-com business and how it couldn't immediately go back on the floor and how it needed storage in the back room. You remember, I mean, it was like all of these steps. And they just couldn't get it. They couldn't get it until I suggested that some of them work in the store, exactly what you're talking about. And I said, you watch one of our customer service people or sales associates take a return from the catalog or from online and you watch how long that takes. Like I said, I don't care if you use the stopwatch on your phone, just watch how long that takes and how it's not seamless, and it should be seamless. And if you want to save time, something that's currently taking 10 minutes should take 90 seconds, right? Like to your point, but no matter how hard you tried to show or tell or teach, nothing replaced the hands-on experience.
You know, it's interesting. I love that example, and I'm gonna add on to that because with my own version of this e-commerce returns in store, we had a similar one. But here's the thing that we were dealing with. At the time, there was no way, and I'm sure probably the same when you were doing this, no way to separate out the returns from the sales of the store. So let's say the store did $5,000 that day and they had $4,000 in return. They did $1,000.
I know, they got dinged.
So essentially all the things like their incentive, their payroll, everything got dinged because of that. So the thing was, we couldn't decide, and this is what the stores didn't want. The stores like, well, we don't want to take them back. Well, first of all, we're here for the customer. So if that's what they want to do, that's what we have to do. Our reality is we have system limitations that we can't pull these things out. So what we did was we worked with our finance partners and we actually created what I called a phantom P&L. And so essentially, while the real P&L showed all the things you and I just talked about, or I just listed, the phantom one put all of it back. And so the phantom one we used to pay incentives and do their payroll. So it was a manual calculation, but everyone was committed from the corporate office to doing it, the extra work. And the employees were committed to trying it because it didn't hurt them in their pocketbook. So the idea was, in anything you do, how do you remove the barriers to adoption? How do you remove the barriers to commitment and essentially remove the barriers to customer experience? But until you understand what those things are, you can't fault people for not wanting to do something. To your point, if it takes 20 minutes and they're supposed to be helping somebody and there's one person on the floor.
Totally. We had this exact same problem in Disney Store. We had a couple categories. Costumes was one, where a lot of costumes were online only. But then you were dealing with that supply chain issue and having non-productive inventory, right? Because you had to figure out how to get it back to the distribution center and get it back into being an active SKU that was able to be purchased online.
One of the interesting things that I think about, just use this as a micro example.
Yeah.
This is why you need people at the table that have diverse experiences and actually are closer to these actual situations.
Yes.
Because I wouldn't know how to solve all those things myself, but I may have 5 different people in different departments that have a point of view or are affected differently. And once you get them together, they can create these incredibly creative workarounds to fix all those challenges for the most part, right? And I think that's also part of this idea I talk about commitment is when people feel like they have a voice and have agency, they can have more skin in the game, and they're more apt to help you solve challenges than just complain about the problem. And so leaders have to think about how they create these cultures ahead of these challenges.
Yes.
Right?
It's brilliant.
I'm not a sports analogy guy. I mean, maybe you are. I am not. But I will say let's say no professional team is actually learning or working out their plays while they're playing the game.
For sure.
Because if they did, they would fall apart, right? So they're all practicing ahead and they come in and they know what they need to do and then they can pivot when those things don't work out.
My God, I feel like you and I were separated at birth because I literally, like I said, and I worked for California corporations, so did you. We've spent so much time on natural disaster prepreration. Remember? Remember, like the earthquake preparedness binder, right? Like the binder with all of the steps. It was like a binder. It was literally
I remember.
People who are not watching, I'm holding my hands far apart if you're listening. But like the binder, and we paid so much money, again, for an outside consultant to help us on we had to stop calling it earthquake preparedness. We started calling it natural disaster preparedness because it worked for fires, it worked for floods, it worked for everything. And all of a sudden in one of those meetings, and again, this is like the finance and IT people, who I loved, by the way, if you're listening to this, but I'm like, how much money did we spend on this? Right? Like how much, let's just step back. And I get that we live in California and this is important and it happens and all that kind of stuff. But the fact that we could spend that amount of money on that contingency, which truly was a contingency plan, versus something that was happening every day in our stores, 363 days a year or however many days we were open. It was mind-blowing to me. And sometimes I didn't see it either. I mean, sometimes I would just snap awake and be like, oh my God, I just spent a week on earthquake preparedness. I have not spent a week on omni-channel seamless customer experience.
Exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? Like it just, like you realized, and you talk about that in the book. Okay, so I want to talk about the book and the book journey.
I found the book writing process to be incredibly cathartic because it was going down memory lane a little bit and just remembering and thinking about all of the experiences that I've had and all the great people I've worked with, or all the things that I think we've accomplished as teens and all the challenges that we had too.
Totally.
And there's going back to that quote, you can see the line kind of as you kind of go backwards. But so I think the process was really rewarding and fun and kind of, I don't know, it just felt very like, not closure, because it wasn't like I had a trauma from it. It was more like, it felt like I was able to like kind of, put it to bed in a way. And then the thing that I think has surprised me externally, 2 things. One is just, I find that people in my life are just incredibly happy for me and supportive of me and celebrate somebody who wrote a book. Like, I mean, it's just incredible. I'm sure you found the same thing. It's just this groundswell of genuine, authentic support is just so, I wish this for everybody, that they have a moment, or maybe they already have, where they feel that from everybody, because that's how I felt. And then I think the thing that I really wanted to accomplish with the book, because, people are ADD and I am myself. And I was like, I want this to be a book that people enjoy reading and learn something from, but it's just just long enough that it's like they can get through it and not too long where it starts to feel like they're reading War and Peace. So I said what I had to say. And I feel like the feedback that I've gotten is it's clear, it's simple, meaning it's not, I don't overcomplicate it. People really love stories in life. And I think it's helped people in different industries really kind of think about how they want to either reinforce, recharge, rethink how they show up. And it's like I said, I think this idea of as you said, the human element is something that every person has taken away from, that I've talked to.
I think what you did is it's simple, but it's elegantly simple, and it's digestible, right?
That's a better way of saying.
It's like you can take it in chunks, right? I didn't sit there and read it cover to cover when I first got it. I took it in chunks, and I think that's what's so great. And I also love, because I saw you posted about this. It's been a while ago now, because you went through the same thing I did, doing the audiobook and recording your own audiobook. Because I think what's so funny is when you're out on the road, or you bump into somebody at an industry event, or you bump into someone in an airport, and they say, "I loved listening to your book." Like, I would never say that. You'll hear it. You'll hear it. Because I, of course, would say, "Oh, I loved reading your book," right? That's just, I guess, because I'm old school. But the number of people that listen to it, and I think it's the same reason why I do the podcast too, is the number of people that listen to it, particularly my friends and community on the West Coast who listen to it while they're commuting, right? Like they're driving. And I was so skeptical about doing the audiobook myself, because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't love my voice and all these things. And of course, like, I wanted Neil Patrick Harris to read my book or something, right? Or Sean Hayes. And my publisher was like, you can't afford them, and you have authenticity on the cover. It doesn't make much sense for someone else to read your book when you have authenticity on the cover. But anyway, I did it, but it is shocking. And I think it'll happen to you, is like, not shocking in a bad way, but all of a sudden we said, "God, I love listening to your book." And I'm like, oh.
But it's interesting you say that, because I think I went through that journey of, was I going to have somebody else read it? And I remember listening to a few of the actors, quote unquote, voiceover actors, that they sent options. And it was just, I just had such an allergic reaction, because it's not about them. They didn't write the book. So they're not going to convey the same passion, I think. But I hope we'll see.
I listened. I didn't listen to the whole book with you. I read the book, but I listened to some of the recording, and because again, it's your story. You know where to hit the emphasis. You know where to slow down. You know where to speed up. And that, I don't think a hired, no matter how talented they are with great direction and everything else, I don't think they can get the same thing. I mean, they really don't. Well, I want to go over some of my little...
I love that you have tabs.
Oh my God, I love my tabs. So this statement of yours in the beginning of chapter 2, curiosity is something many leaders and organizations lack, yet it's the lifeblood of knowledge. It's a mindset that prioritizes asking over assuming, listening over telling, and learning over knowing. I mean, that is so brilliant. Can you tell us a little bit more? And then the title of that chapter is "Your People Are Your Secret Sauce," which I love. But can you tell about that curiosity thing?
Yeah,
I love that.
I mean, it's funny. There's all this research too about when adults stop being curious, and it happens in like your late teens. And it's and you understand it because there's so much information that you have in your head. And so we think that we can solve every problem in front of us with the paradigms that existed from the problems that were behind us.
Yes.
And we know the world is moving so fast that doesn't work, right? And so what I have found is, I think, how many leaders have you experienced where they just talk at you, or they seek to be understood versus understanding? And one of my biggest fears was always, and I think I brought this in the book, I would be on a conference call with 25,000 employees talking about something that we had solved or we were doing. And they're all on the other end of the phone or whatever, rolling their eyes, being like, does he even know what we do? Like, has he ever been in our shoes? And so there was a fear of my not being relevant and understanding the right problem to solve for, the right opportunity to kind of exploit. And so the only way to do that is by being curious, right? Like you're always going to solve the wrong problem if you don't spend the time understanding the root cause of what they're trying to do, right? And so for me, I've just grown up seeing so many people who feel like, and I don't think it's always ego. I think there is a feeling or belief that leaders are supposed to know the answer.
Yes.
Once you get to a certain point, somehow vulnerability, saying, I don't know, saying, we'll have to ask somebody else, feels like it's a kind of, it's a bad thing, right?
Yeah, it's a failure. It's a little mini failure. Yeah.
Right. And somehow it makes you weak. And so for me, I learned over time that actually it's a source of strength, because the more you actually understand from others and can be, as I always say, like, I represent my constituency. Whoever my constituency is, whether that's store people, corporate people, customers, coaching, whatever it might actually be, if I don't understand their reality, I can't represent them effectively.
Yes.
And to me, all those things only happen when you actually spend the time and ask questions. Now, let me actually stop there for a second and give you a little bit of a anecdote that I think will resonate with you. How many times have you been at a party and you've met a random person at a party, cocktail party, or whatever, and you walk away and you realize they've asked you absolutely nothing about yourself, and you have really killed yourself asking them I would like, how do you know so much about that person? I'm like, well, I was stuck talking to them by the punch bowl. It was either me keep asking or us staring at each other with nothing going on.
Uncomfortable silence. Yes.
And so really the human condition is, and I don't think people aren't interested, it's just we all get so in our own heads, in our own world, that we don't reach out to understand others. And it's such an unfortunate reality. And so for me, that's why it's what I wrote is it's so important that if you aren't curious, you're dead in the water. Like what's the point?
I know. It's so funny too, because your chapter 2 and my chapter 2 are essentially the same. My chapter 2 is stay constantly curious and be a lifelong learner. It's literally very, very similar. And
since you wrote it and I wrote it, it must be fact. Done.
I think it's literally like Library of Congress now. Where Harvard Business Review, where are you? No, literally. No, I agree with you. And there is a ton of research and all of that. And I think you hit on something that's so important. And it's something, the name of the podcast now is Ask for an Answer, because I realize is kind of my next step in my leadership practice, in my coaching practice, in my speaking practice, really is the journey that I went on, which is the exact same journey you went on. Because for a long time in our career, and I know your career, Matt, we were paid to have all the answers. We were paid to be the solution provider. And it was like, spit out, especially in retail, which is so fast, right? And all the phrases about us, retail is detail and all that kind of stuff. Like, we were paid to think on our feet and to react, particularly those of us, you and I have field in our background. When you came out of the field, right? And you were running 10, 12 stores, and, there was always a fire in one of the stores, not a literal fire. Something was going wrong in one of the stores, and you were literally paid to, I realize now, almost bark answers and turn everybody into an executor, really. And so I think through my journey, I've now, as I've done the self-reflection and started working on new books and all that kind of stuff, I have to pause. I have to actually literally say in my head, I talk about counting to 7 or counting to 10. When someone asks me or tells me something, instead of just solving, I have to turn it into a question. That's ask for an answer. But I literally have to say to myself, Jim, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because my gut and my instinct, it's like just, oh my God, it's easier. I'm just going to tell Sally Joe what to do. And then Sally Joe's going to go off and do it. And, the denim wall will look nicer because I told Sally Joe what to do. Right. Yeah. Instead of asking Sally Joe the kind of open-ended questions that we all know, but like, Sally Joe, how would you handle this if I wasn't here? Right? Like those kind of questions, ask for an answer. That's literally like where it came from.
I love
and
that.
It's an offshoot it's definitely an offshoot of staying constantly curious. Okay, the other chapter 4 I also love, which is for anybody who hasn't read it yet, it's called Rowing in the Same Direction. But I love the point that you make, which honestly not enough people make, is it's one thing to stand up and say, let's all row in the same direction. But if you don't know where the hell you're rowing, which goes back to your North Star. And I love that that's how you wrote this chapter, is like, it's a great kind of cliched phrase to say, my team all rows in the same direction. We're all marching in the same formation. But if they don't understand the formation or the context, it's not going to happen. And was there a certain time in your life where you learned that? Was that at one of the jobs, or has this just been like a cumulative?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think honestly, it's a cumulative. I'm sure probably similar for you, but you realize, especially as you start taking on more people.
Yes.
And, it's interesting.
Scale.
Yeah. I talk about this idea of you manage process and you lead people. And when people try to manage people, it doesn't work unless you are right on top of them. And that doesn't work anyway, but still. So part of what you have to do when you're leading is to influence and help people to get there on their own, to come with you on that journey, to want to row in that same direction.
Yes.
But people don't attach themselves to facts. They attach themselves to meaning and purpose.
Feelings. Yes.
And this is why I talk a lot about the whole heart, head, hands thing, which we'll talk about later maybe. But but this idea of, as you said, rowing in the same direction, there's two parts to that, right? There's knowing where you're going and that everybody is committed to that destination. But it's also knowing where you're starting from.
Totally.
Which is a whole other part that people don't spend enough time really understanding the environment they're working in, right? And so I think that to me, it's one thing, as you said, to say we all row in the same direction, but is that because you are, like I say, compliance requires supervision and commitment actually creates partnership. And so
Beautiful.
are you rowing in the same direction because I'm literally standing over you with a whip? And as soon as I walk away to get a coffee, you're going to do whatever you want. And it's going to go this way.
Yeah.
Or you're like, we don't need you here anymore because we are so clear on where we're going. And we're so committed that we're going to actually do this. And then you can go do something that's going to help the company even more. And that's
brilliant.
To get to that place is a lot, quote unquote, more work. But it actually isn't, because in the end, you're actually cleaning up the stuff from the first part of compliance that never gets to where you want to go. Well,
and to your point, and you make it so brilliantly so many times in the book, this is about building culture. This is about building long-term success cultures that survive after you're gone, right? Correct. And survive. It's just such a good, thriving culture that even if you move on and you replace yourself, that culture still sits. So I want you to talk to our listeners and our viewers about head, heart, hand. Wait, am I doing it in the right order? Head, heart, hands?
That's fine.
Okay.
Actually, I'm going to start there. No, but I'm going to start there because essentially what you just did instinctively is what people actually think. It
is. And I make
this in the book that if you actually take the words heart, head, hands in the order, which is the right order for me, heart, head, hands, and Google it, the search results reverse the two and give back what you just said, which is head, heart, hands, which is the more widely accepted.
Right, because they think of it in like a linear order.
Because you think about when you're presenting, you start with data. And so we all start with facts first, and then we hope people get attached emotionally to a fact. Have you ever known anyone to get emotionally attached to a fact who wasn't already, right?
Yeah.
And then figure out what to do. And so the human brain actually doesn't work that way. So if you think about how we're wired through the prehistoric times, we are wired to be alerted to danger, which is an emotion, or let's just say, or whatever that. And then our brain figures out what to do with that emotion, which is then the intellectual exercise of making sense of something, and then figures out what to do, which is the tactical, like execution part. And the part of your brain that actually processes emotion moves faster than the part of your brain that processes data. And so the idea is if you're trying to get people to come with you, especially when you're a leader of large organizations, paint a picture of why we're doing this, what's important, what like the kind of the emotional piece, because what that does is people sit up and go, you've got me interested now. My brain and my heart are open to hearing what you have to tell me in the intellectual sphere so that I know then how to behave, meaning how to either challenge this or ask questions, but I understand where we're going, the North Star. Now I may not agree with the way we're going. That's the great conversation part. And then once we all align on that, then people know how to get there, right? Or can talk about how to get there. But the other way It's why it doesn't create commitment. It creates compliance, or literally people will forget when they walk out of the room exactly what you told them, which is a whole other piece of research I want to get to right now.
That's amazing. No, that's absolutely, and I did it. You're right. When I even said it, I did it. I did what Google does. Okay, so we're coming up to the end. I want to make sure it's so obvious to everybody why this book is chosen for Leading with Pride Book Club at elstora.com. There's another plug.
I love it.
But where can they find you, follow you, contact you?
Yep.
All that stuff.
Yeah. So LinkedIn. So Matt Marcotte on LinkedIn, number one. Number two, my website, which is M2 Collaborative, or you can just email me at Matt@M2 Collaborative. And then those are probably the two easiest ways. And then literally the book can be bought on Amazon. We got the 3 formats we just talked about right now that there's an audiobook involved, or 4 formats, I guess. Kindle.
Yeah, with Kindle too, right? Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, no, I mean, or just email me at matt.marcotte@me.com if that's the easiest way. And I'm sure I'll put it in the show notes.
Amazing. Or watch for him. He's out speaking and training too. So watch for him when or hire him, people. Hire him to speak to your team. Yeah. Contact him, hire him as a consultant or to speak at your team meeting or at a industry function. I mean, you can see the energy and it would be amazing. Well, thank you, Matt. I mean, thank you for writing the book.
Thank you.
Thank you for these. There's so many pearls of wisdom in the book. I had many more things marked, but
you and I would need like 4 hours, I think.
I know we should do. Yeah, we need to do a live.
We'll do a series.
We need to do a series. We need to do a live. I would love it. By the way, I think you and me and Ron Thurston on the road because it's similar, but it's different.
Yes.
Right. We have very similar backgrounds and like that similar foundation and grounding, but how we've evolved and what we're focused on is we all have this general love for humans. We all have this general respect for lifelong learning and technology and all that stuff. And we all love the retail industry. But how we've manifested, I guess, is there's
so much value to those.
It's so complementary.
Lenses,
it's so complementary.
Right?
Yes, it's so complementary. But they don't get 3 for 1, people. You do not get 3 speakers. Well, it depends on
Exactly.
Okay. Microsoft. Oh, yeah. Call us, right? Apple. Call us. You can have 3 for 1. But thank you so much. This has been such a treat.
I really appreciate it.
And I hope everybody subscribes to the Leading with Pride book club at Elstora. I hope they just buy your book directly. Of course, buying it through Elstora is better because then you're in the book club and you'll get a series of books like Matt's book. What a great book to start off with, January 2026. Built on Belief by Matt Marcotte. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
What a fun conversation.
Thanks for spending this time with us on Ask for an Answer. If this conversation sparks something for you, don't just nod and move on. Take one idea, one question, one uncomfortable and bring it into your next meeting, your next one-on-one, or your next big decision. That's how this becomes a practice, not just a podcast. If you're leading a team, a classroom, a company, or just your own next chapter, you don't have to have it all figured out. You do have to be willing to listen, to ask better questions, and to create the kind of safety where people will actually tell you what they see. If this episode was useful, share it with someone who's in the arena with you. And if you want more tools, stories, and real talk leadership moments, make sure you follow the show and leave a review so others can find us. I'm Jim Fielding. Thank you for being here, for leading with less armor and more intention. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep asking for an answer.